Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. I forgot what I was going to do. Okay, today I'm going to do one of my accidental authors, an author that I've read at least 3 books by, and the 3 books can't all be part of the same series. This is an author where I've read more than 3 books by him, but across a number of different series, which is okay. And the prompt for doing this is I just read over the weekend The Woman Behind the Door. The person I'm talking about is Roddy Doyle. Roddy Doyle has previously won the Booker Prize, probably before many of you were born, but I was there. And he is this year the chair of the Booker Judges, and he published The Woman Behind the Door in hardback at the end of 2024, and this is the paperback version, which I was very kindly sent free by Vintage, and I'm pleased. I'm not sure I would have rushed out to buy it, which is a shame because it is the third in a series which I started reading nearly 30 years ago. So we'll get to that. Let me talk about my history with Roddy Doyle. I'm not sure if it starts here or here. It's an excellent question. I think it starts here. Yes, oh, so is super exciting. Okay, the first book I bought by Roddy Doyle was this. This was the Barrytown trilogy. This is actually 3 novels that were collected, bound up in a single version. The 3 novels being The Commitments, The Snapper, and The Van. All 3 of them were filmed. The Commitments was filmed by Alan Parker and got a general release. I remember going to see it in the cinema. A fantastic movie. I guess that most people have forgotten, but The Commitments is an amazing movie. And then there were 2 other movies, The Snapper and The Van, different cast, and I think Stephen Frears directed them. He may also have written the screenplay for them, I don't remember. Anyway, I don't think I ever saw either of those, but I did read all 3, and I read these when I bought this in, I believe I bought this. There used to be a bookshop right opposite Camden Town Station, because I bought this when I was still living in England. This is February 1993, and I would have read these one after the other and loved it. Roddy Doyle is an Irish writer. I don't think that means anything more than he was the first time that I noticed an Irish writer punctuating his dialogue differently than books that I was used to. In other words, the book that I was used to had an indent and start of quotations, and then when the sentence finishes, a comma, end quotations, said Daniel. And Roddy Doyle's dialogue is all preceded with a long M dash, and you just go straight into it, and you have to follow along by knowing who the people are talking to work out who's saying what to who, and when one person's finishes and when another. Now that can sometimes be hard to pick up, but actually in terms of dialogue and flow and language and voice, it does. It's like anything, like reading Shakespeare or reading poetry. You very quickly adjust and pick it up. I think this was the first time I had encountered that, and then many other Irish authors did the same. I don't know, you have to be Irish to do that, but that seems to be a typographical trend by Irish novelists, but I don't necessarily think it's a rule of Irish literature. Anyway, great. 3, so that's 3 novels in one. You can see that's short. Each one of them is short. Those 3 novels came out together to 600 pages. So 3 relatively short books. I guess you're only going to read one, maybe The Commitments, but all worth your time, about the Rabbit family, Rabbitte, in Dublin. So that was great. I had a fantastic experience with that. After that, his next book won the Booker Prize. Again, if you're somebody who follows the Booker Prize, I'm going to lay good money that you have not read this book. If you're somebody who follows the Booker Prize on YouTube in the last couple of years, I'm guessing you might never have heard of this book. But this one, it is Paddy Clark, Ha Ha Ha, by Roddy Doyle. It won the Booker Prize in 93. I bought this in 94, so when it's come out in paperback. I believe at the time, I was trying to do some research, I believe at the time this was one of the best-selling Booker Prize winners. So a Booker Prize book may go on to sell 10, 15, 20,000 copies in hardback, maybe 50,000 copies in paperback. That's a raging success. Anytime you're selling over 10,000 copies in any format, as a novelist, you're doing pretty well. I think so. The Life of Pi, I think, famously sold 1 million copies. I mean, that's extraordinary. Shuggie Bain was hugely successful, according to Google. And the best-selling Booker Prize winner of all time is Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. I think they had more global, in order to reach those numbers, you have to also be successful in America. But I think The God of Small Things was across the world was a huge hit. But I seem to remember, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just wishful thinking. I seem to remember at the time this sold gangbusters in paperback. And anyone still reading Paddy Clark? Ha ha ha. Maybe I'll go back and reread it next year in my year of rereading. Okay, after that, he published another book, which we're going to get to in a second because it's the first in the trilogy. But here are the other books by Roddy Doyle that I've read. This was the start of another trilogy, and I bought this in paperback, didn't love it, and didn't read the other two books. So this is A Star Called Henry by Roddy Doyle, which I bought in, I don't know when, because I didn't have a date on it. This was published in 2000, 1999, 2000, and as I say, it was supposed to be the first part of a trilogy. It was historical fiction, and I thought it was okay, but I didn't then carry on and read the rest. I was sort of over my Roddy Doyle period by that time. One book I did pick up was Rory and Ita, which is a sort of biography of his parents. So a different kind. It's not a novel, but it's Roddy Doyle writing about his parents. There they are, Rory and Ita on the back, and I read that in 2004. And then the last one I want to talk about before I talk about this trilogy that ends with the women behind the door. Sorry, I should get that right. That is The Women Behind the Door. We'll talk about that in a second. The other one which I want to mention is The Giggler Treatment, which is a book he wrote for kids, which I bought, I think, and read to my kids. These are gigglers. They're kind of sort of hobgoblins or little creatures. The story is, I mean, it's a children's book. There's pictures and everything of gigglers and dogs. And essentially, I think the gigglers are mean creatures who decide that they're going to make this man. There we have Mr. Mac at the beginning. The whole book is about trying to get Mr. Mac to step in dog poop. My kids obviously found this hilarious, and they're whatever. That's basically the whole story, and it takes place in the space of him leaving his home and walking to the shops, and all the machinations and the tricks they try and pull. And Rover, the dog, I think, tries to save the day and prevent Mr. Mac from stepping in dog poop. And that's pretty much, it certainly turned all of my children into gigglers, and they remember that fondly. I wonder if I asked them to remember the Giggler Treatment, what they would think. But I think there's pretty much each chapter, he almost steps in it and then something happens. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about this trilogy. I just read The Women Behind the Door. It started back in, I bought this in 1997, so 28 years ago. I read the first of these. The book was called The Woman Who Walked Into Doors, and this was a story of a woman, a victim of domestic abuse in Dublin, a woman called Paula Spencer, and her relationship. She has 4 kids, 2 girls, 2 boys. Her relationship with her violent husband, Charlo, her feelings towards him, her desire for him, and her disgust and self-loathing because of what he does to her. It's despite the fact that Doyle's work is very much dialogue driven. This whole book is narrated by Paula Spencer, and we're very much inside her mind. And if you have any concerns, if you've ever thought about men writing women and what that means and can that ever work, I would urge you to go and pick up one or all 3 of the books in this trilogy, because this is a man, Roddy Doyle, writing about a woman and a woman in difficult circumstances, a woman who is in many ways a victim, a woman who sometimes feels that she deserves or doesn't deserve any better than the life she lives, and what it does to her self-esteem and her way she's able to express her love for her children and not let them see too much of what this nasty figure of a husband is doing to her. And it builds towards a climax, and that's tough to read and tough to take. I went back to revisit it because it gets referenced in the subsequent books, and this is an astonishing read. After the Barrowtown trilogy, which is full of humour, Paddy Clark is full of humour but an underlying sense of tragedy, and this was a little more dramatic, a little more emotional. There is throughout an underlying humour, and part of it's to do with the Irish language, just the rhythms of the way people speak. But there is humour, but this is tougher material. And the woman who walked into doors was very well received. I think it was made into a TV drama, one episode like a play for today kind of format, I believe, or maybe it was a 4-part series. I don't remember. Again, didn't go back and watch. I think by that point I was in Israel. Yeah, sure, 97. We were already living here, so it would have been on the BBC or Channel 4 or something like that. And I don't think I went back and looked for it. But the humour is all there. But this is tougher stuff. And Paula Spencer is a heroine. Not in the Shakespearean sense, but in the Willy Loman sense. This is not a highborn character who falls low. This is a human character dealing with a tough life, dealing with her own sense of self, and dealing with motherhood. And throughout this, in all 3 books, the spectre of alcoholism as well is there. I should say that part of the appeal for me of the language and the connection to Ireland, and specifically Dublin. Both my parents from Dublin. So even though I'm born and raised in London, my parents moved to London after they got married in 65, before I was born. And so I am British and speak English with a British accent. Both my parents, my late father particularly, had strong Irish accents and a lot of Dublin idioms. And so things like just the silliest thing. In England, the place in your house that has the boiler where the water is heated up and then gets run through the central heating system or fills all the radiators, that's usually in a little cupboard with shelves, and then you put the towels and the sheets in there because that's always the warmest place. And so when you want a clean towel, you go to the place with the boiler in it, and it's not usually called the boiler room. In most English homes, that would be called the airing cupboard. I don't know why, nothing's really getting an airing in here. In Dublin and in our house, that was called the hot press. And then hot press went on, was for many years in Dublin, was the name of a magazine, because the play on words. The hot press is the Irish term for the place where you keep your towels, and press, and it was a music magazine, I think, in Dublin. Anyway, silly little things. Irishisms, the way people talk, what they say, I'm after going to the shops. That doesn't mean I've been to the shops and it's now after. I'm after doing something is I think I'm going to go and do something, or I'm just about to do something. I'm not going to try and do the Irish accent, but that my father spoke like that. So I have a fondness for the rhythm of Irish English, Dublin Irish English. Anyway. That was the first one, The Woman Who Walked Indoors. The follow-up to that was just called Paula Spencer. This is the title character here. So this takes place after Charlo, the abusive husband, is no longer on the scene. And in this, we see Paula trying to reconcile with the children, who don't quite understand why their father is not around anymore. Don't necessarily relate to Paula as an abused mother. She's just their mother and hasn't been a terribly good one because she's been drunk most of the time, or having the shit kicked out of her. And this is sort of her as a post The Woman Who Walked Into Doors. Clearly she didn't walk into doors. That was the excuse she gave every time she turned up with a black eye. And this is her trying to make sense of her life in a haze of alcoholism, in a haze of self-loathing. And this was a worthy follow-up. And then, so I read this in 2007, so 10 years after The Woman Who Walked Into Doors. And 18 years later, we get the third in the trilogy, The Women Behind the Door. This is Paula Spencer, having aged in real time, in her 60s, 30 years since Charlo is no longer around. Her own children are now grown up. And this is a book set during the pandemic. So she is stuck at home in an empty house by herself, no longer drinking, just trying to make sense of daily life. The opening set piece is the visit with 2 friends to get their vaccination. And one of her friends picks her out how they're going to get there, and they're wearing their masks. They decide they're going to drive. One of the friends has got the car, the other two don't have cars, so she picks them up and they sit in the car with their masks on, and they go and they have to work out where to park, and they have to work out where to get in line, and then they have the process of getting separated off because they're sent, okay, you're going to booth 26, you're going to the, and then they have the doctor who is quite a dishy looking fellow who wants her to roll up her sleeve, but she's worn the wrong shirt, so she can't roll up her sleeve, so she has to lower it from the top, which is she's a 66-year-old woman, but the doctor's good looking, and she's relating how this makes her feel, and it's so human, it's so wonderfully written. The dialogue is so zippy and fresh. It's just glorious. And at the end of the day, they've all had their injections. And they go off to the beach and they sit down on the sort of sandy, grassy, the floor's a bit wet, but they're sitting there and chatting and giggling. One of them falls asleep, and the other two are having a biscuit and some fizzy water, or they've bought a can of wine, but she's not drinking the wine. Everything, every element is described in such simple terms. The dialogue is presented without any bells and whistles, and we see something human and real and felt and experienced. And the conclusion at the end of this day was, that was a good day. You know, Paula's conclusion is she's going to remember this, just sitting in the grass and staring at the sky, and the fact they got their vaccinations, and the fact that she was hanging out with her friend. This was a good day, and that sets up the rest of the book. By the time she gets home, there's a knock on the door, and it's going to ruin her day. Someone's come to bother her. She doesn't like answer the door. She doesn't always answer the phone, even when it's one of her children. She loves her children, but does she really need them interrupting her sense of peace? And it's her daughter, Nicola, who comes in and says, I'm staying. Nicola is married. Nicola has 3 daughters of her own. She's a woman in her 40s, and she appears to have walked out on her husband and told her mum that she's coming to live with her and she's not going back. And when asked, she says, I want to kill them. The violence and the anger and the frustration, how she feels about her own family, reflects so much of how Paula has felt about her family. The love and the frustration, the determination to do only right by them, and then the desperate feeling that you just want to kill them. Every bit of this is turned around and examined and questioned and looked at by people who don't necessarily have the vocabulary for doing it in the way that, you know, some pontificating schmendrick on YouTube might. These are people who are experiencing real things, who have experienced real things. You know, this girl Nicola was a teenager when her mother was having the life kicked out of her by her husband, and has seen her mother has cleaned up after her mother when she was asleep on the couch or vomiting on herself because she was an alcoholic for many years. The relationship between this mother and daughter is not simple, and has in times been reversed. And so Paula's response to her daughter coming and asking her for help is informed by the whole sense, oh, for years she's mothered me, and Nicola, who's been successful in life, has paid for things in Paula's house, but now she's turned to Paula. And what does that mean? How does the dynamic work? And how are these two women are going to go forwards? A 66-year-old mother and a 46-year-old daughter. How are they going to get on with each other and find a new way of interacting, communicating, and dealing with all the shit that they've had to deal with all their lives? The guilt, the burden, the love, the finding ways to express it. If I'm ranting a lot about this book, is because I thought it was really kind of special. I wept through most of it, laughed through the bits that weren't making me weep. I think with this trilogy, which I get, you're not going to read, but if you made time in your lives for Roddy Doyle, if you got through the Commitments in the Barrytown trilogy, if you went back and read Paddy Clark Ha 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 because you wanted to read Booker Prize winning novels, excellent Booker Prize novels, they haven't all been excellent. Paddy Clark Ha 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 is, if you wanted to read that, and then if you wanted to make time in your life for the Paula Spencer trilogy, starting with The Woman Who Walked Into Doors, Paula Spencer, and published this year, The Women Behind the Door. I think you could do a lot worse than get to know Roddy Doyle. Take care. God bless. Bye bye.